Hello, everyone. Once again, welcome you all to Study Bus. In our today's video, we will be studying about the second chapter in science, that is sorting the materials into groups. And the materials or the objects that we see around us are so many, right? So, like, I could see a chair, a table, a bed, AC, fan, bottle, the laptop, the pen, the book. There are so many objects that we can see around us, right? If I talk about the arrangement of this objects, we do it based on the different criteria, right? Like if I were to talk about the objects which are round in shape, it would be the oranges, wall, right? And if I were to know about the objects that are triangular, it would be a slice of pizza, right? Apart from that, we can actually sort the substances based on the different things. Now, if I say I have a bunch of objects, like there are books, there are some spoons that are there. Also, there's an umbrella, some clothes, some shoes. This all are kept together in a living room. Okay. Do you think it is really good? No, right? What do we do when we are sorting it or when we are arranging it? We are going to keep the books in the bookshelf, spoons in the kitchen, right? Umbrella in the designated place. If it's not raining, we are going to keep it in the cupboard. Clothes in the cupboard, shoes in the shoe rack. So we are able to sort this objects that we actually see. Same happens even in the supermarket. You would have seen that in the supermarket, the different things are kept in a different designated place so that it is easy for us to pick up the things. Now, the question arises, why do we need to sort these objects? Right? One very important aspect is that it makes our life easier, right? So, at home, like if we talk about, we store the things in such a manner that similar things are placed in a similar place, right? For example, if I were to place spoon, plates, glass, right? I'm going to keep this in the kitchen. Now, if I were to keep the clothes, I would keep it in the cupboard. And if I were to keep my sofa or my chair, it would be in my living room, right? So it is going to make our life simpler so that we are going to keep it at a certain place. Grains or the different dals or anything that I have, I would be keeping it in a different place so that it is easy for me to take it whenever I require, right? So it is going to make my life simpler. So one, it is going to help us in going to keep it in a conveniencing the way it is there for our convenience. Another reason why we sort the substances is basically because to understand the properties of the substances so that we can group them as well as study them and also understand more on this substances. Okay, so if I'm talking about sorting, why the sorting is required, right? Now a question arises, how do we sort the substance? But before that, if I were to make a vessel, a cooking vessel, what would be the material that I would be using to make this vessel? Will it be paper? Will it be cloth? Or can I use a steel or a copper vessel? Which one would be easier? Obviously, it's going to be the steel or the copper. If I'm going to use the paper or the cloth, what is going to happen? The whatever I'm going to cook, it's going to not be there, right? So we make the objects, right? We make the materials based on the properties. Okay. Now, if I talk about the different properties, okay, so you might have observed that some of the sub objects that are there, they are hard, some of them are soft, some of them they are soluble in the water, some of them are not soluble in water. Based on this, okay, based on the properties, we are going to group the objects and we are going to look into the different properties. Okay, starting with the first property, that is the appearance. What is meant by appearance? Appearance is nothing but as soon as I see it, okay, so it gives a different kind of appearance to me. Okay, let's say if I'm talking about gold, if I see gold, it is having a shiny appearance, right? So this substances or this objects, I could actually place them into the lustrous. Okay, these are the lustrous. That means they are having luster, they are having a shiny appearance. Okay, and there are some objects like wood, paper. They do not have any shiny appearance, they are dull in appearance. So we can place them in non-lustrous objects, and these are non-shiny or they have a dull appearance. So based on the appearance, we can sort the substances as lustrous and non-lustrous substances. Apart from that, like I said, some of the substances, when we are going to touch them or when we are going to press them with our hand, some of them are easily compressible, while some of them are not. Right? So based on the hardness, but based on whether we can compress the substance or not, we can classify it as soft substances and hard substances, or soft objects or hard objects. Like the soft toys, the cotton, the sponge, this can be classified as the soft objects, while there are other materials which are difficult to compress, right? Like the copper itself, okay, the copper vessel, I would say, the statue, the pan, okay, and these are iron. Okay, so these are hard. Okay, so based on the hardness, based on whether we can compress the substance or the objects or not, the materials can be classified as soft and hard materials. Okay, other than that, based on another property, that is the solubility, whether a material is soluble in water or not. Based on that, we can classify or we can group the substances as soluble substances and insoluble substances. Let's say if I take a salt, add it to the water, is it soluble? Yes, right? So this salt is a soluble substance. Apart from that, if I take sugar, dissolve it in the water, this is also soluble, right? So based on the solubility, we can group the substances as soluble substances. If they are not soluble, let's say I'm taking the water, to this I'm adding the sand. Is the sand soluble in water? No, right? So this is a insoluble substance. So based on the solubility, we can group the substances as soluble substance and insoluble substance. If I were to give you salt, sugar, chalk powder, as well as sand, how would you classify it? And I'll say you based on the solubility, classify the substances. Sure, salt and sugar, you're going to keep it in one place, right? Because they are soluble in water. Chalk or sand, they are insoluble in water. So you could group them as the insoluble substances. Okay. And now, based on whether a substance can sink or they can float, we can also classify them as whether they are floating or sinking in the water. Okay, so for example, if I talk about the glass tumbler, okay, so this is what happens to it when I'm going to put it in the water. It's basically going to sink, right? And if I'm going to talk about the dried leaves, this is going to float on water, right? So based on whether the sub objects are going to float or whether they are going to sink, we are going to classify the substances as whether they are going to float, floatable or non-floatable substances or the objects. Okay, so that is basically about another property on how we can sort the substances. Then one more interesting aspect, that is the transparency. So if I talk about transparency, transparency is nothing but based on whether we can actually see the things through it or not. Based on that, those substances through which we can actually see, okay, the see through the things, we can call it as the transparent substances. For example, the glass. Okay, so glass, if I talk about, you would be able to see it, right? As well as there is some plastic also, which through which we can see what is inside. Let's say if I'm talking about a bottle that is there, okay, a plastic bottle, which is actually I'm able to see what is there inside this bottle, right? So that means this is transparent. Okay. On the other hand, there are some materials through which we are not able to see. For example, if I take a cardboard, would I be able to see what is there beyond this cardboard? I can see through it, right? So such objects are called the opaque objects. Okay. And then there are these translucent objects through which we cannot, these are partially visible to us. For example, if you remember in the food chapter, when we were discussing about how do we identify the fats, we had conducted a oil patch test, right? If I take a paper, rub oil on it, okay, you could see that you're not able to see clearly what is there on the other side. But it is not like, you are not able to completely see it also. It's like partially you could see. Okay. So same happens with case of the butter paper as well. Okay. So these are the translucent objects. Okay. So this is all on how, we can classify or we can say sort the substances based on the different properties. So in this chapter, very important things are, first, what is sorting, right? Sorting is nothing but it's the grouping of the materials, right? And why do we do it? Why is the sorting done? That is, one, to make our lives easier for the convenience. Another is to study the properties by keeping them in the same place, right? Now, based on the properties, we can sort the substances, right? So, based on the different properties, like based on appearance, we can classify the sort the substance as shiny and non-shiny or dull. And then based on whether the substance is hard or soft, we can sort the substance as soft objects or the hard objects. Okay. Then another property, that is the based on the solubility in water. As we can sort it as soluble objects or soluble substances or the insoluble substances. Then, based on whether an object can sink or float in water, based on that also we can group the objects. Then, a very important thing, that is based on the transparency. We can sort the substances as transparent substances or objects, and then opaque objects, and then the translucent objects. So this is all about the sorting of materials into groups. I hope you liked the video. If you have any doubts, post it in the comment section so that I can take it from there and answer your questions. Apart from that, if you like the video, do like, share, and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video. Bye, everyone.